was worth $1 trillion, or at least it was for a few moments.
It became the world's first corporation to have a market value of $1 trillion. In another reality, however, this is not the case. Certainly, Apple is still one of the world's most valuable firms, with a market capitalization of more than $1 trillion. Yet, in this parallel universe, Apple is not the first to achieve this feat. Contrarily, Standard Oil was the pioneer, becoming the first $1 trillion firm before 2016, years before Apple's victorious moment. In fact, even in our timeline, Standard Oil existed and was a $1 trillion corporation after inflation. But what exactly is Standard Oil? And why isn't it on various fortune lists or other collections of the great and the good? For a while, Standard Oil was the largest oil corporation, or simply the largest organization in the United States. According to certain measures, it is still the largest corporation the United States has ever seen. So, what exactly happened? Before we answer that question, allow me to introduce you all to economic news. Please like the video if you're enjoying it so far, and subscribe to our channel by hitting that big red button and ringing the bell icon so that you will be kept in the loop for the releases of our future videos. Now, let us answer the question. In 1911, Standard Oil was obsolete, finished, and split up into several companies and organizations in one of the most dramatic verdicts in business history. Today, we're going to look into this to find out what happened to Standard Oil and what lessons may be drawn from it. The Standard Oil tale began in 1863 when John D. Rockefeller joined scientists Samuel Andrews and Maurice B. Clark in their Cleveland, Ohio-based oil refining firm. 2 years later, Rockefeller purchased Clark's share of the firm before persuading Henry M. Flagler to join in 1867. During the next several decades, Standard Oil would grow from strength to strength, and John D. Rockefeller would become one of history's wealthiest men. The rapid industrialization of the United States in the second half of the 19th century was fueled in large part by Rockefeller and Standard Oil, who invested in projects all throughout the country. Of course, oil remained the primary emphasis, and by 1880, the corporation was responsible for 95% output in the United States. The Standard Oil Trust was established in 1882 as an innovative business structure to facilitate Standard Oil's massive development across the country. Standard Oil might use a trust to avoid difficult local regulations and decrease their tax burden. This was a tremendously successful approach that other firms will follow in the future. Yet, it would also draw the attention of the U.S. administration. In 1890, John Sherman, the brother of Civil War General William Tecumseh Sherman, drafted legislation that would spell the end of Standard Oil in its original form. This became known as the Sherman Act, sometimes known as the Sherman Antitrust Act. Any unilateral agreement between corporations or any large-scale non-competitive conduct would be effectively prohibited under the Act's wording. Monopolies, trusts, and common interests were all considered antithetical to the free market ideas that underpinned the U.S. economy and were thus forbidden. Standard Oil, which had been doing well with its own trust, might be next in line. In actuality, prosecutors were already looking into Standard Oil. The corporation had long since dominated the oil refining sector, but it was gradually branching out, depending on its massive resources to support new enterprises. In the 1880s, Standard Oil added oil exploration and distribution to its job description, as well as direct sale of its own oil-related goods after refinement. Healthy rivalry and the ebb and flow of market forces neither existed in the Standard Oil debate. Standard Oil was able to wipe out its competitors by leveraging its strong ties and making the market work for it, thanks to a massive corporate machine at its disposal. Washington, D.C. watched with dismay as Standard Oil dominated the U.S. oil business and ultimately became the industry itself. The monopoly was in place, and the foundation of the trust was an unnecessary step. the government felt compelled to take action. The Sherman Antitrust Act provided the government with both the means and the excuse it required. But there was a catch. How might one firm be prevented from acquiring multiple additional companies if all transactions were conducted honestly and unambiguously? What made this unlawful? The action of purchasing the firms was lawful, but the subsequent scenario was not. Congress contended that Standard Oil's size and structure posed a direct danger to competition and the market as a whole. Essentially, all of the refining businesses in the United States now functioned under the Standard Oil banner, and the company's growth into other sectors of the supply chain threatened to further expand the monopoly. Nonetheless, there were still counter-arguments. What if Standard Oil just outperformed its competitors? There was definitely some truth to this. The company's quick expansion in the 1870s was primarily due to better technology and business expertise. Standard Oil's dominance had not occurred by chance or deception. They were at the top of the rankings because they deserved to be there. Could they have been penalized just for being too excellent, for going too far? Yes, according to the Sherman Antitrust Act, they certainly could. In 1911, Chief Justice Edward D. White presided over a court ruling that effectively ended Standard Oil. The court determined that it was the number of purchases, not the type of acquisitions, that translated to trade restriction. Standard Oil was monopolizing the market and damaging the public interest by taking up so many firms. Even fairly, higher pricing, lower supply, and diminished quality were the outcome of Standard Oil's absolute domination in the U.S. oil market, according to the court. Its conduct was not in the best interests of the American people, and Standard Oil must go. What occurred after that? Standard Oil was done, but its legacy would live on. The organization was broken into 33 smaller organizations, and some recognizable names started to appear. The corporation was divided based on state lines. In California, for example, Standard Oil became Standard Oil of California, and then Chevron. In Indiana, Standard Oil of Indiana continued to trade for decades until it was absorbed into the worldwide British petroleum brand as Amoco. This merger would also gobble up other parts of the defunct Standard Oil family, including Standard Oil of Ohio, where J.D. Rockefeller got his start and was purchased out by BP in the 1980s. So Ohio brand fuel was accessible for a few more years before being phased out in 1991, 8 decades after the Great Dissolution. Then there were the great success stories, the firms with the most Standard Oil DNA. For example, Standard Oil of New Jersey would become Jersey Standard or Esso, and then Exxon. Meanwhile, across the Hudson River, Standard Oil of New York developed into Saucony, and then Mobil. These delegates from the Empire and Garden States would soon join forces, becoming ExxonMobil, one of the world's largest corporations to this day. In 2023, there is no Standard Oil on our timeline. There's ExxonMobil, BP, the Rockefeller Foundation, and a slew of other relics of those wild days over a century ago. But other firms and groups have displaced Standard Oil in the public's megabucks perception. When we think of the major powers of business in the 21st century, we think of Apple, Google, Amazon, and Microsoft. It is digital technology that creates billionaire entrepreneurs and trillionaire enterprises in the digital era. But are there any lessons to be drawn from this? Are these megatech companies dozing off into a crisis? Consider the concept of competition. There is nothing requiring us to buy an Apple gadget when we go out and buy a smartphone or a tablet, yet most of us do. Where do we go when we need something delivered? A book, say, or something else? We could travel to the local town center, but Amazon is much more convenient. It's a similar narrative for social media and digital tech companies like Meta, which includes Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and Oculus. Other suppliers exist, but many of us find that the brands within the Meta umbrella meet all of our needs. Time magazine explored the necessity for big tech regulation in 2020. and competition was high on the agenda. Time contended with some validity that these corporations were intentionally aiming to remove competition and monopolize their markets, citing Apple's entire lack of interoperability with competing goods, Meta's purchase of competitors, and Amazon's low prices and concentration on accessibility. Is any of this, however, illegal? Probably not on its own. Businesses can acquire other businesses. Companies can create goods that only work with their own products. Organizations can provide cheaper rates and better service than rivals, as long as it does not violate worker rights. Though many would argue that these rights are currently being violated, but keep in mind that nothing Standard Oil did was unlawful, at least not in isolation. The total market impact, the full extermination of competition, drew Standard Oil into the eyes of Congress and its prosecutors. The Standard Oil juggernaut was brought down by the company's unfettered prosperity and its impact on the customer. Today's tech titans should bear this in mind. Thank you for watching this video. What are your thoughts on Standard Oil? Was the decision justified? Are today's tech titans moving in the same direction? Tell us in the comments. Also, if you have more time, check out our other amazing videos on our channel. This has been Economic News, and goodbye.